Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom. Happy Friday. Whoa, it's been a fun week.
It has been a fun week. I would agree with that. It's been a lot that's happening. It's always good to have a fun week. And I think if we looked back on our weeks more often, we would probably realize that there were a lot of fun weeks. So good morning, everyone. This is today's Antidote. That's Bob. And I'm Tom. And for those of you who are new, as we are now on a podcast as well as a Facebook Live, we have a conversation around a topic every day. And like real renegades, we have a conversation about it. And we welcome people to provide their input. While we have some things that we add that we think are of value, we know that what you will provide will also benefit us and others. And then at the end, we'll offer our antidote, our one thing, the one thing to help you move forward, whether today or somewhere down the line, but it will impact what is real for you. And if you have something that you'd like to share, please feel free to do that. If you are watching this on Facebook Live, you can put it right in the comments. If not, you could always join our Facebook group. We'll talk about more about that later and share your thoughts inside of there. So now that we have done our little intro.
We got this comment already coming in. Bold color choices today, gentlemen.
So for those,
I think that might be Tim.
I would imagine. For those of you who are on the podcast, you don't know that I am wearing one of my favorite shirts that is like, I forget the color that they call it, but
Fuchsia.
That's exactly it. And Bob is wearing a red polo. And so we have a very, not even contrasting. I'm not sure what you would even call that color combination. You would never put them together in an outfit, put it that way.
But yet we do it because we're real renegades, Tom.
Absolutely. And we are not in the same outfit. We're just in the same window screen. So actually,
there you have
different window screens of a larger window screen.
So Tom, can I take a second and do a little housekeeping?
Sure, why not?
I pledged yesterday to contact someone that I had said that I had lost track of this person over 4 months, a prospective customer, and I called, got no answer, left a message, emailed, and texted, and the text got returned last night. We have a meeting this afternoon. Or this morning, late this morning, so that's really good. I also finally got through my 20 outreaches from last week.
Nice.
So it took a little longer than I anticipated, but it has led to some discoveries and some opportunities, so well worth the effort. So if you're trying to figure out what I'm talking about, you can go back to last Friday's episode? No,
I think it was actually
Tuesday. So it would have been
correct.
17, go back 17, August 10th.
Yes, if you, that conversation, I did a little coaching for Bob. Bob had shared that sometimes one of his fears of follow-up was about getting actually a yes and what that might look like and how that might change maybe who he is and what he does. And so we had a conversation around that.
My cat's in the program today, Tom.
That's great.
That would be Casey.
If we were only focused on the podcast, they wouldn't know that, but that's okay.
There's a pretty little cat that's hovering very close to me today.
It's Friday. It's raining out in Baltimore, so that's probably why.
Actually, she perked up when the music started. She came right over. So maybe she likes that tune more than we thought. That maybe that's the issue, that we appeal to felines, not people.
Maybe something for us to consider.
Yeah, that's it. Go ahead.
As we sort of get back to the show, but before I'm going to dive in and talk a little bit about our topic this week. What are we celebrating today, Bob?
Hey, it is National Chocolate Pecan Pie Day. I got nothing.
That's the best of the choices.
Well,
Son.
the other option for today was National Radio Day. But as someone explained to me about a month ago, when they put a radio console in my vehicle that, does all the map stuff and all that good stuff. And I went to use the AM and FM radio because I'm old, and it didn't work. And I said to the person, hey, I'd like that to work. And they're like, you've heard of TuneIn Radio and Spotify and Pandora. I'm like, yeah, I've heard of all those things. Use those. I was like, no, I really would like to. There's a sense of security in having radio dials. There's something about listening to the baseball game on the radio, not on MLB.com or the app or TuneIn or all those things. There's just something about baseball on the radio. So it is National Radio Day, and we have Mr. Marconi to thank for that, right?
Absolutely.
And we only know that because of the who was the band? Are you not? Oh, I think it was Journey. Remember Journey and the song "We Built This City"?
I do remember that.
Marconi and the radio, blah 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 blah.
It's funny. The reason I remember that is Schoolhouse Rock, which many people won't remember.
Oh, more than you realize will remember.
I learned a lot from Schoolhouse Rock. So
I know how a bill goes.
Absolutely.
I know every conjunction junction and what's its function.
If you are not aware of Schoolhouse Rock,
go find it.
Go to YouTube and find it. You will.
You will.
You will. And if you have children, let them watch it, because that will be a great learning tool for them. A little different than what they're going to get on Disney Kids or Nickelodeon Junior.
Yes,
and it'll have some value. They will learn some things about life, and so that's
all good.
I like National Radio.
One more thing, Tom, I want to mention, because I was doing this yesterday. I was listening to our podcast. Okay. Yes, I was listening to us, and I have figured out that the absolute perfect speed for us is 1.75. On a podcast, if you have the right system, you can accelerate it or decelerate it at 1.75 seconds per second. So almost 2 to 1. I sound really brilliant. And there's a certain little staccato aspect of it, and it doesn't totally degrade our voices. So I listened to 4 episodes yesterday. It was a 22-minute episode, and I got through it in, like 14 minutes. So hint there, you can also do that on YouTube. You can't do that live. We can only talk really fast, Tom, and that wouldn't be really exciting, but that's what it sounds like when we go really fast.
Well, and then it would mess up anybody who's on 1.75 on the podcast.
Yeah. Right. Then they'd be at 2.8 or something.
It was interesting that you said you sound really great. You didn't share how I sounded at 1.7.
Tom, you always sound good. That goes without saying. I merely didn't say it because it didn't need to be said.
Got it. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, so now that we've had our moment to celebrate, I want to, one of the things that we do. So if you're new to this, again, since this is our first week of the podcast, at the end of every week, every Friday, we try to wrap up our conversation. And this week, our conversation has been about follow-up methods. And so I think that what we'd like to do now is have a little conversation about, kind of what we learned over the week, or what sort of stood out as a part of really trying to understand what did we take away from the conversation. So as you look back on the week, Bob, that went everywhere from a little bit about what follow-up methods are, one-to-one follow-up, one-to-many follow-up, and then we talked a little bit yesterday about lessons learned about our experiences with follow-up. What's your takeaway from the week?
I think my takeaway from the week is what we were talking about yesterday, and that whole idea of just no is not no forever. It's no for that moment. And that it could mean yes 3 days, 3 months, 3 years later. And that we need to continue to follow up so that if that need arises, that we serve, we satisfy, they are aware of us. And I think that's truly, when we get down to what follow-up really is, That's what follow-up is. I think the misconception, and I was thinking about this morning while I was running, the misconception is that follow-up is supposed to get a sale. And I think, yes, follow-up can lead to a sale, but it's not a one-to-one relationship. Every time I follow up, I get a sale. If I follow up one time and I don't get a sale, that was the cattail, yes. If I follow up one time and don't get the sale, that doesn't mean I shouldn't keep following up. And then the other thing I really I want to reinforce is, yesterday I talked about creative ways of following up. And I think that's something else, that just calling up and going, hey, it's been 3 months. You told me to call you in 3 months. Are you ready to buy from me? Not really helping the know, like, and trust part of the business aspects. And I think the more you can be creative, the more you can move things along. And that's where I think you and I, Tom, really built our relationship. Was one of us, we'd get together and be like, hey, did you see this thing? Did you read this article? Did you look at this book? Are you subscribing to this list? We were constantly helping each other with information and resources. Never, I think one time you asked if I would do some work for you and I didn't charge you, but we didn't really, when we first started meeting, I thought you might be a client one day.
Fair enough.
But I never pushed that. You knew what I did. You knew well enough to get me a client, so I didn't have to worry about that. But that wasn't the goal. The goal was to support you and provide you with what you needed that I could offer. And that's paid off handsomely because you've gone and told a whole bunch of people about the great work I do over the years. And so that's a form of follow-up. You and I have never transacted money.
True. Well, we bought lunch for breakfast for someone. I don't know if that's considered transaction or not.
Wait, what happened?
Well, occasionally somebody had to pick up the tab for breakfast or lunch.
Okay, but never, hey, Tom, sign this contract and I'll do this work for you.
Correct.
And I would say that the model of follow-up you and I have demonstrated with each other is a really good model for follow-up. And sometimes it works out to be a sale and sometimes it doesn't. And I think the more we can divorce, and I like what you were saying early in the week, the more we can divorce ourselves from, I followed up, oh, they didn't sign up with me now. I followed up, they didn't buy my product, letting that go and just going with, I followed up.
Sure.
I did what I said I'd do yesterday. And, I told you in the afternoon, I did the things I was supposed to do. There was no response. It wasn't until last night that there was a response. Yet yesterday afternoon, I sent you a picture of me celebrating with some hash browns.
Correct.
Because I celebrated the action, not the result. And I think that's probably the renegade way, right? The real renegade is one that celebrates the action, not the result, knowing that the results will follow sooner or later.
At some point, right? We can't control the results. The results are determined, in that case, by someone else. So the opportunity to celebrate the action, because that was the hard part for you, was getting over the fact that it had been 3 months since you had connected with this person. And what might they say? What might they do? So the opportunity to do that was not easy for you to consider. So doing it allowed you to celebrate, which I love. I love that thought of it. And as you were talking, I was thinking about mine. And it's interesting, I think, because so often, which is important, we talk about this in a relationship to sales, to business, which makes sense. That's the focus of our work. And I think follow-up works and should be considered in our personal lives as well. How do we maintain those relationships that we have? Because they can add value in a different light, in a different part of where we are. So whether that's with a significant other, a spouse, a child, a friend, how many friends, I feel like you go through cycles with friends where, based on whatever it is where you're at in your time of your life, you have maybe a different subset of friends. Some carry throughout your entire life, and others kind of pop in and out. And I think we miss opportunities to follow up with some of those relationships that we could maintain. I think about my college friends. many of whom I had a really good relationship for 4 years because we were sharing a common experience. And my follow up with some of them has not been as good as it could have been. And I'm not sure what I have missed. I'm sure there were certain opportunities that I missed because I didn't follow up more effectively to maintain those relationships. And I think, the other piece of that is the follow up was a little bit what you shared about tater tots yesterday, is that you had a shared experience with someone around tater tots. If you don't know what that's about, go back and listen to yesterday's podcast. It's an interesting conversation. And that shared experience provides an opportunity for follow up and to maintain some sort of relationship. We had a shared experience at one point. We went to a networking event together. Could have been the end of it, right? Could have walked away from that event and maybe we saw each other occasionally or whatever, but that was what it was. Could have ended when I went back and took a full-time job with the university. Very different. My mindset was a little bit different people that I was with, different responsibilities. And yet somehow the follow-up maintained. And then when I went back and started my business, we kind of rekindled that relationship because it had been maintained throughout the years. And so I think that, and while that has had huge value professionally, it has also had significant value personally. And so I think, sometimes.
I think I'm going to cry, Tom. It's a hallmark moment.
Well, that moment was just ruined, but okay. No. So I just think that that's something for us to consider. I've been thinking about that a lot in my own personal life. What is the follow-up that we do? And I think we think of it differently. Maybe we don't call it follow-up. It's about reconnecting and re-engaging relationships. And maybe that's, the method, if we're talking going back to the follow-up methods, is whatever we can do to recreate or to re-engage and reconnect with people, I think provides us with a great opportunity for a follow-up. And I think that's what I would take away. And I want to ask you something about,
sure,
because we know, at least we know, and some people who have watched the show know, that one of the things we try to do at the end of every action is ask ourselves 3 questions. What went well? What didn't go as planned? And what will we do differently? And since we are at the week wrap-up, I thought it might be good to add this to our weekly wrap-up show. What would you do differently, Bob? Now, knowing what you know, which has changed or impacted at least a little bit, what's real for you, what will you do differently?
It reinforces the need for me to really refine my system of follow-up so that I have ticklers. I have software I use and I'm really good at it for about a week or two, and then I sort of wander away from it. I need to be more focused on that software, putting the data in and saying, I need to call this person in 2 weeks. And then it's really great. It comes to my calendar and says, hey, you need to do this today. And I go, yeah, whatever. Go out. That one person over 3.5, 4 months, I literally clicked, okay, gotcha, okay, gotcha, okay, gotcha, every day for 3.5 months. So I need to be more consistent in doing that. And I also think, on the bright side, I think I've learned that a delay, if it does happen, isn't always fatal.
Sure. I like that. Well, so what would you do differently?
Keep track better of the opportunities.
Okay.
And just really make follow-up an important part of the week. It tends to be the thing that I put off. It tends to be the thing that's like, if I don't have time, follow-up's the first thing out the door. When in fact, I could argue that follow-up might be the most important thing for the week. So maybe shifting that focus to, okay, as I build my day, as I build my week, I'm going to build it around follow-up. So if I have appointments all morning, that means from 1 to 2:30 is follow-up time. And it's part of each day.
I like
and
that.
So I'm still trying to work through this. But I think that's part of the beauty of this approach, that
Sure.
it forces you to think through the possible permutations. Doesn't mean what I decide to do is right or wrong. It just means I'll try something different. Maybe it works better, maybe it doesn't, and then we'll reassess and keep going. That's the renegade, right?
Sure. You take what's real for you. It's not right or wrong. It's just real. And based on the conversations we've had, that's what's new, what's real for you. So, okay, now go out and put it into action. So you've created a plan, which is a great thing. So now go out and to put it in action. And then, as we always do, celebrate once you complete that action. Then you have a chance to go back and evaluate it. Ask the same questions all over again. Once you have more input into your knowledge, experience, and perspective, it will allow you to determine what's new for what's real. And we can try to figure out how to move forward. I do love that Tim was agreeing, I think, with both of us, because I think both of our comments were really about this. His follow-up should be about continuing the relationship, not making a sale. Sales will come. Relationships are what builds business. And I would agree. I would agree
And
with
that
that.
to me is part of the renegade thing. When we talk about being a renegade, that is that approach that you're not focused solely on the sale. You're focused on building relationship. And for those who say, well, that's crazy because all I want is money from the sale, I'll tell you right now, the relationships that I form have far more value than one sale, because the relationship can lead the person. I have a meeting with someone today who has found different things for me to do for various organizations she works with, because she and I got to know each other. We have a relationship where she can call me and go, Bob, I need this thing. I don't know if it's what you do, but let me just talk through it. Oh, okay, that's great. And then I've called and said, hey, got this thing with the PPP funding, and there might be a way that we could do something. Do you want to talk through what? Oh, that sounds really great. That's a relationship. Whereas if I had just said, hey, I want to speak to your group, done. Thank you very much, Bob. Good luck to you. Now I'm on the, not the preferred vendor list, which would be great, but I'm on the thought area of, hey, I'm thinking through things and I thought your feedback might be useful.
Yeah, you're helping people figure out what to do next rather than just being the person who does what's next.
Right.
I think is more of a trusted advisor rather than just someone providing a service.
Right. And there are, if you're a plumber, or not a plumber, if you're someone who deals with waterproofing and, pumping out basements today in Baltimore, you're going to be really busy because there's a whole lot of rain that's come through.
Sure.
That's a business where it may be about a sale in the moment, but there can also be follow-up after that sale where you say, hey, we came out and we did this thing. Would you like us to do some prevention so that it doesn't happen again? Would you like us to come out, talk to the neighborhood coalition about how they can be better with their stormwater management, which would prevent the water from going in your basement?
Sure.
Those things. And every time, if you spoke to the community, 200 people sitting in the room, and you're talking about, you guys need to put swales and do all these things and get the leaves out of the roadway and all that. Okay, great. Every one of those 200 people is seeing you as a reliable resource.
Sure. As
which
someone
opens their eyes.
Yeah. And I think that makes a huge difference. And the opportunity was created because of the follow-up that we have done. All right. So I think we're nearing that time, Bob, as we now begin to offer our antidote. What's your one thing around follow-up methods? I mean, I know we talked a little bit about it as we did a review of kind of what came to you based on the conversation of the week. What would you say is your one thing?
Have a system.
Have a system. Okay.
Even if it's on a sheet of paper, I've seen people that have notebooks and they just write every new opportunity down on the notebook and they go back 18 pages and go, oh, I need to call that person. And they circle it and they call the person. I've seen people with customer relation management systems. I've seen everything in between. I have someone who has a Google document and they put everything in there. I have someone else who uses Microsoft Notes and tracks them all in there. Doesn't matter to me. I've seen people use whiteboards.
Sure.
It doesn't matter what the system is as long as it's effective. And I could argue when I told you earlier that me getting those little pings each day is not effective because I can just say, yeah, okay, whatever.
You can ignore them. What do you
Right.
need to punch you in the face and be like, hey,
Well,
do this?
so there I have a system, but it's not an effective system. And I think it's having an effective system that keeps you. I can't remember all the people I talk to, Tom. There's no way.
Sure.
I don't know how many times in a month I'll be driving and I'll be like, oh my God, I haven't talked to this person in like 3 weeks. It's just too much. And as you build something bigger, it's harder. And
Sure.
I also, because I know we have people that watch this program and listen to it who are in the organizational workspace and they aren't entrepreneurs. And we talked a lot this week about entrepreneurial follow up. I think there's a whole range of follow up when you have employees. And it's the same thing.
I was gonna talk about
Strategic
that.
follow up, really having a system in place that gives them access to you. I've had bosses who are like, call me if you need me, if there's a real problem, and then you call and they weren't available. And I had other bosses who were like, you have a weekly meeting with me. It's set for 10 a.m. every Tuesday. If there's nothing on your agenda, feel free to cancel it. But you know, every Tuesday at 10, you have access to me for whatever you can use that for.
Sure.
And
I
I
think
think those are all forms of follow-up leading to the same result, building the relationship with your employees, because if you can build that relationship, good things will happen. It's not about just getting them to do the thing you need to do today. It's about getting them to understand your mission, understanding the goal of your organization, and being committed to that.
Well, and I think you also have to be committed to that. I
Yeah.
think one of the challenges, funny, I was, somebody was sharing something on Facebook yesterday about doing the hard thing or not being afraid to do something that's difficult. And that you're scared of. And someone wrote about how nervous they were about going into a performance review. And I just shared that I think that, the sad part is that if you're a really good leader who does really good follow-up, the performance review is just a continuation of a conversation. It's not like a one-time measurement of what you have done. And I think that if you're a really good leader, the people around you come to you with things that are challenging for them, that allow you to grow that relationship, and that you are following up on some of those things. I always thought that if one of my team members came to me to say, hey, you know what, I'm thinking about this job. What do you know about this organization? Do you know anybody there? That I had done a really good job being a leader, that I had helped them understand that my goal was to help them improve. And by them improving or getting to wherever it is they wanted to get to, that was going to help the overall organization. That they were going to be a effective employee, an effective member of their team. But the only way I would get there is if I followed up in the right way. If I followed up in a way that was like, how can I help? Not just, why haven't you got this done? Why are you missing these things? Now, are there places for that? Sure. I also think that there's opportunities for you to follow up as a leader, and even as someone who reports to someone else. Sometimes that managing up can be as effective as managing down, where you're doing the follow-up and saying, hey, you know what, we were going to talk about this, and I know you're super busy and maybe we need to put it off, but when are we going to schedule it? How are we going to get it done? And I think that level of assertiveness and that level of follow-up is showing that it matters and that it makes a difference. And I think that was, as I thought about my one thing, it would be that, how do I find a way every day to do 5 follow-ups, whatever that might be? And again, could be personal, could be professional, could be something that continues to grow a relationship in an effort to add value to the world. And I think that the more I can do that, the results will take care of themselves.
Nice. Tom, I haven't heard the cricket at all today.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Maybe the cricket, maybe I didn't find it.
Okay.
But I do have some tools that help sort of drive the insects a little crazy.
What?
I don't want to talk more about it.
Do you have bows and arrows or slingshots?
No, there is. So if any of you are struggling with cricket,
you just said you didn't want to talk about it. I baited you into it. Excuse the pun, baited. See what I did there?
I did. I'm trying to decide whether I just wrap the show up or I actually share information.
I think to wrap the show up. If someone wants the information, they'll let you know.
You can message me, and you can follow up with me, and by email, text, put a comment in the show that hey, I want to learn about this insect thing. I'll follow up with you after that. So thanks for joining with us today, folks. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode. If you have one thing that you would like to share about what you gained from this week about follow-up methods and how you can do them, or if you have something you're going to do differently based on what we have talked about, we'd love to hear your thoughts. So please feel free to put it in the comments. You can also put it inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. If you're not yet a member, it's easy to join. Just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades. And it is a private group, so you have to ask to join because we're trying to create space where people can have conversations like this. Not about crickets or insects, but about how do I leverage my follow-up differently? How do I find ways to work better with my staff? How do I do follow-up personally because I'm struggling with that? Or how do I create a system that is going to help me be more effective in following up and an opportunity to build business relationships that may lead to sales and other things? So just ask to join and tell us why you're a renegade, and you can be a part of that. If you are listening to this on podcasts, one of the ways you could help us is to share it. You can also follow us on Spotify or subscribe through iTunes podcast. So we hope that you will become a greater part of our show. We hope that we added value to your day. We hope that you go out and celebrate whatever action it is that you take. And we will see you Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for our next edition of today's Antidote. If you're looking for the podcast, it should be up around 8:45 a.m. Eastern time. So thanks so much for being a part of the show, and I hope that you have a great day.
Embrace the renegading you.
Like that. Take care, everyone.